Hi there, and welcome to Studio SN, your place for card making, rubber stamping, and paper crafting tutorials. My name is Sara Naumann, and I'm so very glad you're here. Today we're going to play with a fun and easy stencil embossing technique that I refer to as brayered and layered. So you can see here I've got 2 layers of embossing going on in my background. This bright yellow that you see here, this is embossing powder that has been brayered onto the background, where the orange darker areas here have been embossed through a stencil. So I've got 2 layers, a great way to create a dynamic background and also a really fun way to make double use out of your stencils. So let's take a look at how to do this. So I'm going to bring in a piece of plain white smooth cardstock, and this is white cardstock from Wow. These are the folks who are going to provide a lot of the stuff that we're looking at today. So in addition, of course, I need to have my embossing ink pad. I'm also going to start out with a brayer. This is going to be the first round of application on my cardstock. And this is a brayer from Paper Artsy. You'll notice it's a little bit dirty. It needs a good clean, but this is just some leftover paint and it won't hurt our project at all. Then in addition, of course, I need to have my embossing powders. And I'm going to be working with 2 out of the 3 powders in one of these trios from Wow. And this is the Bursting with Color trio. And I want to work with 2. I'm going to be using the Sunburst and also the Lava Burst. So I just need to pop these out of the packaging here and save the remaining Berry Burst for another project another time. So of the 2, I'm going to start out with the lighter, which is the Sunburst, and then my second layer is going to be that Lava Burst. You could do the reverse if you wanted to. It's completely up to you. So to start out, I'm going to just take my embossing ink pad and I'm going to run the brayer across the embossing ink pad and right onto my background cardstock. Now I'm not trying to cover the entire piece, just want to get some ink onto the background. I want to make use of some of that white space. Now let me grab a piece of folded scrap paper. And I'm just going to gently slide this in here. And I'm going to start with my Sunburst. And I'm just going to sprinkle this onto the background. And then tap off the excess. And you can see that beautiful golden orange color with a little bit of yellow in there too. So now I have my first layer. This is the brayered layer, if you will. I'll just tap off any excess. I'm going to return the embossing powder to the jar and heat set this, and then we can get on with the second layer. Now that my embossing powder has all melted, I'm ready to move on to the next step of the process. But before I do that, I'm going to give this a little bit of a tilt just to make sure that I'm seeing some shine on all of the areas of my background. Just kind of run my hand over it to make sure that everything is melted. Now I can bring in my stencil and do the second layer. So the stencil that I'm working with is one from Paper Artsy. This is the PS092 stencil, and it's a really cool overall harlequin design. Now you'll notice on here that the harlequin itself is not perfect. It's a bit of a distressed effect, which means that we have a lot more creative freedom, I think, in our overall results. You don't have to worry about it being too perfect because it's not meant to be perfect. So what I'm going to do is just place this on top of my brayered background. Now if you like, you can tape down the edges if that makes you feel better or a little bit more secure. I generally just hold things down, and I kind of hold down areas with my hand and then move it around as I'm adding my embossing ink. So the way I'll do this is with my embossing ink pad, and then I'm going to bring in my second color of embossing powder, which is the Lava Burst. So this is a darker shade of that really beautiful orange color. So I'm going to hold this down, take the lid off of my embossing ink pad, and then I'm just going to press the ink pad through the stencil. Now when I do this, I'm not squashing the ink pad down, I'm not pressing too hard. I'd rather go around a couple of times with light, even pressure than squashing it through. This ink pad is really great because although it's juicy, it's not so juicy that it will seep underneath the stencil. So I think I've got that inked up, and I'm going to lift this off. It's important that you lift rather than slide the stencil to avoid smearing that ink. And again, bring in another piece of folded scrap paper, and then I'm just going to add my embossing powder on top. And there you can see I'm starting to get that really cool, if imperfect, stencil design. So let me add a little bit more embossing powder up here at the top, and I am ready to heat set. My lava burst embossing powder is all melted, and I'll tilt this again just so you can see the shine and how pretty those two colors look together. And I also really like how the white is still showing through, and it allows us to actually have a little bit more contrast as well. Now you could do this technique in lots of different combinations, going for a high contrast between the two colors or keeping things a little bit more tone on tone like we've done here. Either way, it's such an easy way to make the most of your embossing powders and your all over stencils as well. So let's take another look at the card itself, and you can see I've just simply trimmed it down, mounted it up onto some black cardstock, and then added a stamped sentiment here and a die cut embellishment. So the die cuts are from Altenew, and this is from their framed dies collection. It's one that I use quite a lot. And the stamps are from Wow, and this is from their beautiful stamp set. So they have some words in here and phrases that you can interchange with some of the smaller sentiments as well. So that's what I've done here to say thank you for everything. And then a few little embellishments and some twine are just going to finish off the rest of the card. So this is how you can create a really fun and easy brayered and layered effect with your stencils and embossing powders. Thank you so much for joining me today on Studio SN. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to Studio SN on YouTube, and I'll keep you updated on the very latest stamping and card making videos. In the meantime, please feel free to stop by my website, saranaumann.com, for more paper crafting ideas. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you again next week.